Southeastern Bow Hunter Podcast.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Southeastern Bow Hunter Podcast. In this episode, we're going to have what I consider a local legend. This dude is very well known in the local community, especially in the hunting community. And, he was one of the first dudes that I actually was, I guess, learning from when I first started hunting, 5 or 6 years ago. And very helpful, very, very cool dude. It's Mr. Causey. A lot of the people listening to this, if you're in Georgia, really, or just in the hunting industry, and I guess not industry, but the hunting community, you might know who that is. So I know he's going to have a lot of cool stories. I'm sure there's going to be really interesting things that we talk about. Before we start that, I'm going to try to make this intro short. All the partners, so blessed to be able to work with these guys. As you can tell, my bow is not on the rack right now. It's actually at the shop getting a new set of strings and cables. But my Obsession HB33 is a hammer, getting it dialed in, getting ready for deer season, picking out, arrow setups and stuff like that, changing sight tapes. As you can see, I have an entire tape kit right here. I actually just ordered another one because I cannot seem to pick an arrow weight, and still trying to get that thing sighted in. Tack was fun, but I wasn't on point with the sight tape. But I say all of that to say that, if you're in the market for a new bow, Obsession's got some new bows coming out soon. I know the Bone has just started shipping out, and they've got the Vengeance NT, the Vengeance 354, the Ultra Mag 354, and the Ultra Mag NT. If you want to check those bows out, go to obsessionbowsrefuel.com. and you can see all the things that they have. And, I like my bow. It does the job, and it's going to kill some deer this season for sure. Next up is going to be, speaking of sights and sight tapes and all that, Dialed Archery, my Arxos. As soon as I get my bow back and, I have the time because work has been driving me crazy lately. As soon as I get my bow back, man, I'm going to get that sucker dialed back in, make sure that at least my 20, 30, 40 is good, because out here we don't really have, many long range shots. I think the furthest shot I've taken is 25 yards, and it's really not that far out here in Georgia. But that dialed Arxos, man, that is probably the coolest sight I've ever seen. It's definitely the best sight I've ever had. Super easy to adjust your yardages and stuff. The sight tapes, the switch tapes, super easy to change whatever tapes you need to use based off of your arrow weight and all that other stuff, man. So you're in the market for a new site, go to dialedarchery.com, check out everything they have. Believe me, you won't be disappointed. All right, I'm going to run through these. So Osseo gear, my camo brand of choice. I've been working with Joe and Osseo for the past year and a half. Super blessed to be working with those guys. Great product, great company, great people. If you want to get your camo, and we still have a few months left, but dude, it's going to fly by. This year has been flying by. Go to their website, check out everything that they have. Use our code SEBH, and that'll save you 15% site-wide. Next up is going to be Summit Tree Stands. I know you can't see my stand behind me, but it is probably the best stand I've ever used. It's the Dual Threat Pro SD. Thank you again, Jake, and them for hooking me up with the stand, and I cannot wait to get it in the woods this season. It is amazing. It's such a comfortable stand, very versatile. They're just a great, great product. And, Summit's always made good products, so I'm really not shocked. So if you're in the market for a new tree stand, if you've got an old one and you want to get a new one, go to summitstands.com, use the promo code SEBH15. That also saves you 15% site-wide. Shout out to Scout Tech, my boy Ryan. Going to be deploying some new cameras here in the next couple of weeks, hopefully. And, man, I'm just so amped. We're finally getting to the point where deer season's just over the horizon. Got pictures of tank, pictures of trike. For those who don't know, really quick, I might be losing my spot where trike is at. I need to go over there, talk to the neighbors, try to get permission there, because the people who own the property are moving, and you know how that goes. It sucks, but it is what it is. I'm going to do everything I can to kill that deer this season, and hopefully you guys can follow along on the journey and see a big 6-point go down. My Scout Tech cameras have been working amazingly, both on that property and where tank's at, even though one of my cameras' batteries died. So I got to go out there and fix that. But yeah, man, Scout Tech's an amazing company. We're super blessed to work with them. And, Ryan has become one of my good friends, and I love those guys. So go check out Scout Tech, see what they've got, that's interesting to you, and make the switch, man. I'm telling you, you won't regret it. Let's see who's up, who's up, dude. Ace Social Circle. They actually have my bow right now. I'm getting those new strings put on. Mark told me they'd be done tomorrow, which in I guess real time is going to be Friday the 31st, I think, if I'm not mistaken, or the first. I don't even know, man, honestly. But yeah, man, that shop is awesome. If you want to get your bow checked out, go out to them, check them out. Also, if you feel like sending your bow off to a different person, or you want to try someone who really goes in the deep end of everything, check out Bergie Bowsmith, my boy Bergie. Dude answers all the questions I have about arrows, bows, everything. Really great guy, really great service. And believe me, you won't be disappointed with what he does with your bow. I mean, he will get that thing set up so well, you hardly ever have to touch it. Gosh, dude, I always blank on this stuff. VPA, I don't know how I forgot that. VPA, man, they are going to be my broadhead of choice again this season. Very blessed to be working with Ryan and Jeff and everybody, Alex, everyone over at VPA. They have a new broadhead that they just debuted. It's not for sale yet. It has not dropped officially, but I did see videos of it. And so I'm going to talk about it on here. It's the Omega with bleeders. So I shot the Omega last year and I loved it after I made the switch. And dude, it really, I mean, it was, I'm not going to say a game changer, but it's nice. It's a great broadhead. And now they make it with bleeders. So I will be running that this season. Cannot wait to see what it does. There's been a lot of studies on, fixed heads with bleeders and all this other stuff. I'm not going to go into it right now, but man, I just so blessed to be working with them. So if you're looking to change broadheads, I know Thor's looking at it. A few other people have reached out to me about changing broadhead and trying VPA. Go to vparchery.com, look at over 70 different types of broadheads that they have, and use our code SEBH10 at checkout to save 10%. Man, I think that's pretty much everybody. If I forgot someone, I'm sorry. I'm rushing to do this. My wife and daughter just left to go do some errands, I guess. And then tonight after this episode, we've got to get them packed up. We're going to Alabama tomorrow for a wedding. A lot of stuff to do, man. Not enough time in the day to do it. But look, there's always time for this. If you don't know Jesus, please get to know him. He's been working on me for a while. Still not perfect, never will be. But with him, I know that I've got him in my corner, and there's nothing that is impossible anymore. I don't want to get super preachy, but my favorite Bible verse is, "I can do all things in him who strengthens me." I say that every time I'm struggling. I say that every single time that I'm in the deer stand, because I do get in my head, and it really works. And also another thing, mustard seed. Mustard seed is my saying now. Whatever, I was telling this to a buddy the other day. Whatever you're struggling with, regardless of what it is, if you have the faith of the size of a mustard seed, you can tell that mountain to move and it will listen to you. Basically, what that means is if you have even the smallest shred of faith, anything is possible. So imagine if your faith got even bigger. Look, man, put your faith in Jesus. I'm not even going to, I'm saying it outright right now. There's a lot of crazy things going on in this world. There's a lot of evil in this world. And, we'd probably already be doomed if it wasn't for Jesus. We actually would be doomed if it wasn't for Jesus, because without him, there's no way. He is the way, the truth, and the life, and the only way to get to God, get to heaven, everything that is promised to us in the Bible. I know I'm getting preachy, but I have to say this. It's I'm gonna sound like every pastor out there. It's on my heart to say this. It is. So anyway, that's my spiel. That's the intro. This episode with Kip is gonna be good. It's gonna be great. And I hope you guys enjoy it. So check us out on YouTube, check us out on Apple, Spotify, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all of that. Long intro done. Let's get started with Kip Causey. Guys, we got a local legend, in my opinion. A dude that if you're in any of the Facebook pages for Georgia hunting, you know who he is. The man knows what he's doing. If you're watching the video on YouTube, you can see the deer behind him, and believe me, that is just a fraction of what's actually in that room. We got Mr. Kip Causey. Did I say that right? Is it Causey?
That's it. Kip Causey.
Right, perfect.
Junior.
Junior. Kip Causey Jr. Got to throw that junior on.
There's another legend out there. He's a legend on the golf course, though.
That your dad?
Yeah, he's a local legend on the golf
course.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I was gonna say I don't golf, so you can tell me that, and I'd be like, "Oh man, that's crazy." But
Yeah.
yeah, man. So you look, man, I said it in the intro, and I told you this earlier, but I'll say it again. I started hunting 5 years ago and got in that all the Georgia Facebook pages and stuff. And, your name's popped up quite a few times, quite a few of the deer on that wall, I'm sure, in those pages. And I've listened to stuff that you've said. And, I should have gotten you on the podcast sooner, but a mutual friend of ours told me to get you on. And, he sent me your number and I was like, dude, what do you think? So I got to thank Daryl for that, Mr. Daryl Dickens. I'm still struggling to get him on the podcast because he's so busy too.
Yeah.
But
Oh yeah.
I mean, for the people who don't know, maybe, we've got listeners from what I understand in a few other states,
Right.
even some like overseas, which is crazy. I don't even know who they are. But why don't you tell us like how you got into hunting? We kind of did touch on it a few minutes ago. And
Right.
what got you to pretty much where you're at today with all those deer on those walls?
Man, I probably started like most people. Luckily, my father was kind of a novice deer hunter. He grew up a little bit doing it with his big brother. He's got a brother that was 10 years older than him. They kind of cut their teeth hunting Piedmont National Forest in middle Georgia. Didn't know what the world they were doing. I came along a little bit later in life. I think he was 35 when I was born. He started dragging me to the woods. He didn't know the difference between a white oak and a poplar tree. And we just, hey, this is a pretty spot. We'll sit here. Didn't see many deer. It was more like looking forward to being picked up in the carpool line on Friday, headed to deer camp to go not see any deer, but spend time together over the weekend. um, didn't learn a lot of basics, but had a good time. I think the first time that I remember being in the woods with him, I was probably 4 years old. Um, you know, Memory kind of in and out a little bit over the years. Started taking a little bit more serious as I got older. Um, did the stereotypical thing that every kid that grows up hunting in the South does. Got my hunter safety done. Was excited that I could start hunting on my own. Killed my first one when I was 11 years old, sitting on the ground with a 243, and actually didn't even kill him. I killed him, but he wasn't dead. Somebody else finished him off, and I got to claim him because I was 11 and didn't know what I was doing. Excuse me. Um, anyway, it created a monster, man. I became obsessed with it. I think I started bow hunting at 13 years old, so I guess that would make this coming year 30 years. I guess if age math serves me right, I'll be 42 this year, so I guess that's 30 years worth of bow hunting. Um, I think I killed my first deer with a bow at 16. I was 16 years old, and it was like probably still the longest shot I ever took. I could shoot better at 16 than I can at 41. I'm not the range shark. I can tell you that right now. I started. I mean, dude, it just became an obsession. A really good friend of mine, Chad McGregor, he is a low key killer. He and I became really close. We started just hunting locally. I kind of got him more serious about bow hunting. We were shooting anything under the sun that walked. Yeah, man, we just kept hammering away, learning from mistakes. Didn't know how to get in front of them. Didn't I had nobody to tell me what kind of sign to look for. We didn't know what we were doing. See deer tracks, even back then, we didn't bait any deer. We were terrified of the game warden. I ain't so scared of the game warden now. But we were terrified we weren't gonna get caught. Everybody else was piling up corn. We're still trying to go by the book. It took a lot of years, man. It took a lot of years to hone those skills and learn what it takes to be a stealth. Hell, I probably didn't start paying attention to the wind till I was 25 years old. I didn't know any better. There wasn't any YouTube videos. There wasn't no hunting public to study and think I'm an expert the next day. It was just kind of a trial by fire. I think I killed my first gross pope and young at like 28 years old, and I still barely knew what I was doing. That was in the Midwest. I didn't have any real good places in the South to hunt. We just kind of did it, hoped for the best, killed a lot. Um, Man, I got this little post nasal drip. I'm going to keep clearing my throat.
No, you're good.
Over the years, man, I just started figuring things out, started picking brains, kind of like how I run my business. I don't reach down for advice. I always reach up. There's somebody I know is an absolute killer, then I'm picking their brain. Somebody I know I'm better than, they're not going to bring anything to the table for me. I'm not going to get advice for somebody that I've already passed up. That's kind of how I deal with life and business and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's kind of how it all started off, and then I guess in the last 10 years, I've been pretty consistent. Had better places to go, climb up in trees, knew what to look for, knew when to go, how to go. Still make plenty of mistakes. There's still I could name 25 people right now that I think are more deadly than I am. But I don't think anybody ever gets it figured out.
Yeah.
But if there's a big deer somewhere that I don't want to be alive very long, if I get a notion to get in front of him, I got a pretty good success rate of getting in front of him.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like you know how to make it happen. And
Yeah, I mean, look, man, the biggest factor in that is having them. You
yep.
can't. You're not going to go sit in some middle Georgia WMA on a creek crossing and kill 2 Pope and Youngs every year.
Nah.
I'm not going to say it can't happen, but you got to have them.
Yeah.
You're definitely not going to kill them if you don't know if you know they're not there.
I mean, have you seen like a change over the years down here in the deer size? Because I hear a lot of stuff, and I'm in so many Facebook groups for hunting, dude. It's not even funny. And a few
Yeah,
of them are public land groups that I actually hunt public land.
right.
And man, it's like a few of these places are well kept secrets, you know. And I've seen like my biggest deer I've ever seen on the hoof or on camera was on public land. And
Yeah,
when you go in these Facebook groups and everyone's like, oh man, there's no big deer here. You know, there's little basket racks. And I'm just sitting there like, dude, if you saw the photos that I got over the summer and early season, you would completely change your mind. So, I mean, have
right.
you noticed the difference from when you first started to now? Because I feel like every year on Facebook, I see more and more big deer being killed.
Yeah, I mean, man, I think that's a multi segmented problem to solve there. Number one, everybody's got a platform now, so obviously you're going to see a lot more out in the open. Um, is there bigger deer now? Are they more prevalent? If people are managing them, absolutely. We got this huge movement of the suburban deer hunter because of certain, organizations, YouTube channels, whatever. I have no hate towards them. Whatever they want to do, they do. But that's gonna open up a big can of worms when it comes to deer. As far as like seeing like a big paradigm shift towards bigger deer in the last decade, I think it's just more out in the open, man. I think they've always been there. I have seen some giant deer on public land in Georgia, but I don't hunt a lot of public land.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm being just blatantly honest, I'm not going to waste my time going in my backyard here and hunting West Point WMA all bow season, hoping that I see a deer that merits me passing an arrow through the shoulder.
Yeah.
When I got 5 deer in the 140s that are killable an hour from here. You know what I mean?
Where is that
So,
at?
well,
I'm kidding. You don't have to tell me.
that pen's got a price on it.
Well, I'll ask again when we're not recording. How about that?
All right, that sounds good. Yeah,
Yeah,
man, I've got some pretty good ones in the magazine coming up this year. It's
dude,
gonna be it'll be fun.
and that's the crazy part is like, you know, obviously, especially, you know, us being in Georgia and stuff, when I first started, you know, and we talked about this earlier, like I was watching Seek One and watching like Bone Collector and, you know, all of that. And
Right,
I will not lie, you know, when I was younger, because I've always been into deer hunting, right? I just didn't have
right.
any avenues of doing it. I had a drunk uncle who I love dearly, but I had a drunk uncle in Illinois who would go to Wisconsin every deer season for like a couple weekends. And I'm
Mhm.
thinking, and he's killed big deer. I mean, he's definitely still got bigger deer than me. But
Right.
when I was little, I'm like, oh, Uncle Johnny. And I've told the story 1,000 times, but I'm like, can I go with you? He's like, oh, no, maybe when you're older and all this. And I never went because what was really happening was they were up there getting drunk the whole time. And then they'd go out and kill whatever they saw. And so
Right.
like, you know, coming up, I didn't know anything. So I'm over here playing deer hunter, thinking that every single time I go in the woods now, I'm going to see a 150-inch deer. And that's just not the case, man. And,
Right.
you know, like you were saying, you know, there's big deer, they're more prevalent maybe because people are managing and all of that. And it's, I have to agree because like the seek one style of everything is one way you can do it. There's also so many different ways, like hunting public. I'm actually having to go try and get permission at a spot because I'm losing the spot next to it. And so I feel
Right.
like with internet, social media, YouTube, all that stuff, it does make people think that, you know, you watch one video and now you know everything about deer hunting.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's not how it works. I mean,
No.
I learned so much last year compared to the year before that now it's like I can almost definitively say that at least something, you know, hopefully, well, I'm not going to say that. Hopefully, with what I've learned, something bigger than this one behind me is going to go down this year just because they're there.
Yeah.
And it's like you were saying,
Right.
they have to be there. So that's why I was wondering if you think that the deer are getting bigger. Because, I mean, all the people that I've gotten to know through the podcast and stuff that are in Georgia, they at least have one deer on camera that's, you know, bigger than 130s, like Will, Make, Pope, and Young. So
Right.
I don't know. I mean, you know, do you think that like I guess going to the public side of stuff, that is what I've learned is the hardest hunting that I've probably ever done. And I kind of
Right.
agree with you. Like, why would you go, you know, on some public land behind your house? That, yeah, you could go out there, you know, scout and try to find all that stuff, but we can't bait out there. And I know
Right.
baiting's not the key to it, but it does help. Um, I mean, do you think that like the hunting side of, or the hunting public stuff is merited for how popular it is, or because it to me
Well,
is like I go out there and I put up cameras and I don't know what's going on. I've got one cell camera out there. I've got nothing but
right.
ducks, you know, and it's almost
Right.
like, is it really worth it when I can go 30 minutes up the road and actually go hunt a big deer, even though I know
Yeah.
big deer are there? I mean,
Right. Well, look, I'll say this, man. I commend anybody that wants to do things the hard way. Right.
yeah,
Like, I'm not knocking anybody's game. I don't like you'll have these people that kind of want to be holier than thou, like I'm hunting private land, but I still refuse to pile up corn. That's fine. That's their prerogative. But my time is extremely valuable.
mm-hmm.
And not just dollars and cents. It's pretty expensive when it comes to business too. Um, I'm trying to get the most bang for my buck with my time. And I'm not hunting deer inside a fence. So it's like, unless I just sit out, and I made plans yesterday with a friend of mine to hunt some Alabama public land this year
Okay,
and try to do something later in the season. And it may or may not happen, you know, because I would take absolute pride in going and killing a 115-inch 8-pointer on Alabama public land with a stick and string, you know, as much as going and killing a 135, 40-inch deer on private land that I'm the only person that's setting foot on. Like, it's just, you know, it's a situational thing. So I'm not going to knock anybody for doing things their own way, but being that, you know, and I know obviously I know I'm not the only person. My time's valuable, man.
mm-hmm.
Like, I'm trying to get the most bang for my buck, and I know that I probably have conservatively 15 Pope and Youngs that I know of that'll be alive this year on properties I have access to. So I'm not going to shoot the first big one that walks out that's over 125 inches.
Yeah,
Like, I got my own standards, but I also, you know, I don't want to feel like I'm embarrassed if I do if I end up killing one of those deer because I have made plenty of mistakes.
yeah.
I have I have never regretted not pulling the trigger, so to speak. Like, if I want to kill someone, we'll kill what I want to kill.
Mm-hmm.
But my time is very valuable, and I'm gonna go where the big deer are. Like, look, man, I enjoy running an arrow through 100-pound doe just as much as anybody does.
Mm-hmm.
But it takes a pretty impressive animal, either in age or size or whatever, to kind of get me fired up and make me start really investing time.
Yeah.
And that's when I start getting serious. And if that deer's on public land, I have killed some giants on Kansas public land. I wasn't even supposed to say that. because there's no big deer in Kansas on public land. But like, look, I live over here right next to West Point Lake. I actually live on the lake and on the Alabama line, Chattahoochee River. I've got 140-inch deer in my backyard, literally, and I know how to get to them legally. But if I got a 190 in South Georgia, I'd rather go kill that deer. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of what gets me fired up.
So did that?
Unfortunate.
Sorry, I
Go ahead.
gotta
Go
ask
ahead.
you this real quick.
Okay, go
Did that
ahead.
come like with? Because I'm assuming you're a lot like most hunters are, where you kill one deer, right? Say you kill like this buck behind me, right?
Right.
Next year, you're gonna want to kill something bigger, right? Like it's kind of like an improvement thing, right? Or do you look
Not
at
necessarily. I can't say that, man. Because I have killed lesser deer that I had history with that I just wanted to kill. Um, excuse me, man. Oh, excuse me. I had to edit that one out. So I killed an 8-year-old 8-pointer 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm not the guy that tells them to open up the mouth and look at the jawbone and tells you exactly how old that deer is. I don't look at his shoulders and his gut and tell you, oh, yeah, he's 8 years old. Well, I knew he was 8 years old because I've been watching him for about 7 years or 6 years. And he disappeared for a while, and he was barely 125-inch deer. And I was as satisfied with that deer as I have been with any deer I've ever killed. I was over the moon with that deer.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily. Obviously, everybody wants to upgrade. I mean, I guess I'm kind of the same cliche, seasoned guy that likes chasing big deer. I'm looking for the most mature, Billy badass deer out there.
Mm-hmm.
And if that deer is a 110-inch 6-pointer, and I decide that that's the one I want, then that's the one I'm going to focus on. And if he's a 4-year-old that I'm worried about, like this velvet deer right here behind me, I let that deer walk 3 times the year before, and he was pushing 140 as an 8-pointer. But he was about the size of my biggest golden doodle, and I knew he was a baby. I've got a video of me 18 yards behind him in a lock on watching him on the camera.
You're better than me.
Well, hey man, there was a time when I would have shot him twice.
Yeah.
I'd have launched a grenade at him at one point in time. I just kind of kept faith and decided, like, I don't know how big he's going to be next year, but he's going to be something.
Yeah.
And he turned into a 159-inch deer, and you see him. He's there.
See, that's what's so cool to me about guys like you is like, and I know Jay has sort of, when he was on the podcast, he kind of said a similar thing where he shot like a deer the same size as the one behind me, and he ran it around town showing everybody off. It even
Right.
fell out of his truck. He was so hyped about that. But Jay now, just like you, is at a point where it's like you've got to set standard for, a certain deer that if it doesn't get you fired up, you're not going to shoot it. And of course, my cat in the background now making noise. So I don't know if you can hear it. But that is one reason why I look up to the guys like y'all, is because I'm at that point where it's like right now, yeah, I want to do better. But I'll be honest, if I had seen that deer you were talking about, I'd have shot him, no doubt, no question. Yeah. I don't care how big his body is. And granted, I'm not like a trophy hunter, right? We eat the deer we kill. I just would like to get better as the years go. So I guess really what I'm saying is the goal is to get to the point where you guys are at and be like, all right, he's 140 inches right now, but he's no bigger than my pit bull is. I'm gonna give him 2 more years and see what he turns into,
Right.
So
well,
I respect that.
It makes
man.
the blow is eased a little bit when you got some under your belt,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not like, listen, there's people that don't even talk about it that have killed far bigger deer than me that are far better at this than I am. And they wouldn't even be putting it out in the open. So I'm not like God's gift to bow hunting. I talk a lot of crap, keep things stirred up. I'm way too honest for most people. So I'm not like the end all be all to killing things with an arrow.
Yeah.
But when you reach a certain level, not that it's anything special, when you reach a certain personal level, the pressure's off.
Mm-hmm.
It's like kind of a been there, done that. It's kind of like, you know, if you're playing baseball and you hit your 10th home run, you don't do the huge bat flip like you might have done on your first one. You know,
Yep.
you got to act like you've been there. And I ain't saying don't get excited about it,
Oh
but
yeah.
it's just it's kind of a tenure thing. It's like, you know, I've got some pretty good deer under my belt, and you know, I'm not going to tell you that I'm not going to go kill a 125-inch 3-year-old 8 pointer opening day of bow season this year just because it gets me excited. Like
Yeah.
I don't cave to that. Now, branching off of that, there is a little bit of a reputation, if I'm being completely transparent. Like, you know, again, I don't want to try to make myself out to be anything special. I ruffle feathers sometimes, and people take things out of context because I'm kind of in your face and honest. And if you want to, if you're never going to have to wonder what my opinion is.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I know that there's people that pay really close attention to what I do, and if I roll if I roll into town with a 2-year-old 8 pointer in the bed of my truck, I'm never going to hear the end of it.
Yeah. I'll be like,
It's
what?
not that it's going to bother me, but it's just ain't worth the hassle. So,
Yeah.
you know, I got my own internal reputation that I want to keep up. So, you know, that's why I keep my eye on bigger, mature whitetails. And that's what keeps me motivated, man. That's what keeps me going. Like, man, last year when I killed this deer behind me, dude, I didn't hunt. I hunted one or 2 days in September. No, I take that back. I hunted seriously 1 or 2 days in September,
Mm-hmm.
and then I went and whacked a couple does a couple afternoons. Um, that was about it until rifle season came in, and I got a 7-year-old that people probably know as much about him as they do me. He is an absolute killer, and I get everything set up for him. And then we're rifle hunting almost every day, trying to let him upgrade. So like I didn't even hunt myself much at all in Georgia last year.
Yeah.
I didn't have many deer that I felt were killable with a bow, and quite frankly, I wasn't going to go waste my time hoping an odd deer would show up on October 1st.
Yeah.
You know, when it gets closer, when they start moving around, you know, third third week, fourth week of October, I'll go out there and hope one funnels through. But I'm not going to go waste my time. My time's better served somewhere else. So I don't get caught up in having faith that the deer's just going to appear out of nowhere that gets me excited. If I don't know he's there, I'm not going to waste my time. Now, there was a lot of deer that I had last year that a lot of people would love to kill, but I'm killing
Probably me.
if I if I'm killing a 160-inch deer in September, I'm not punching a tag on a 135-inch 8 pointer in October.
Yeah.
I know what I've got because I got some places in South Georgia that have some giant deer on it. And I don't think I've killed a deer with a rifle. I hadn't killed a buck with a rifle since 2017.
Oh wow.
And I shot him at 11 yards with a Creedmoor. So
Good.
I'm not scared to rifle hunt. I got some pretty good places to rifle hunt.
Yeah.
And I don't really drop my standards down when it comes to rifle hunting, or you know, my standards don't go up or down depending on whether it's just a bow or rifle. So I mean, I put a lot of focus in hunting in South Georgia, and let a lot of those deer walk, let a lot of them grow up, and I'm looking forward to this coming year down there. And
Yeah, it is. It is crazy seeing the difference, man. Because like the Paget buck was killed down in South Georgia. That's the state record.
Mhm.
And
Right,
then I see so many.
where is that deer?
What, the Paget buck?
Yeah, nobody knows.
What do you mean?
That deer's still missing, right?
If I haven't heard about it, if it is, I
I
was gonna say.
don't think they found it yet. Anyway,
No, what's crazy to me is like, buddies of mine that live in like Illinois, like, right, I'm from Illinois, moved here when I was
right.
6. So I got family there. I've gotten to be good friends with the guys from working class. So we talk about, their deer and our deer here. And it's crazy that up there, they're all like ag, right? And out by
Right,
us,
right.
yeah, we've got some ag, but it's mostly like, I call it like hardwoods. There's ridges. It's not flat,
Hmm.
especially because I'm in Covington. So out here, it's hilly as crap in a lot of these places.
Hmm.
And But going down south, man, the size of those deer and all that ag out there, it's almost like we've got our own little version of the Midwest, you know?
Oh yeah, for sure.
So it just hearing you say that you hunt down there, I'm not shocked at the caliber that you probably got because it just
Right.
makes sense. It's all there. And before I forget one thing, my buddy, Thor, he wanted me to ask you
Hmm.
about those the red seats. What's up with the red seats?
I mean, man,
Because I don't know anything about this.
I'm trying. Well, so those red leather seats, man, I bought a new truck and it came with waterproof cloth seats, and I've never seen that before. Waterproof cloth heated seats.
Hmm.
I said, you know what? I've never dreamed of a Maserati, never dreamed of my dream truck. My dream vehicle's always been a Cummins diesel. I'm on my second one, and I bought a real nice one this past time. And I was like, we're not doing this cloth shit. We're gonna upgrade.
Yeah.
So they're not red, they're crimson,
Oh, okay.
if you ask me, because roll tide. And I'll always catch hell about that living in Georgia. But yeah, that's what the red seats were about, man. I decided I was going to turn that thing into make it look a little sharp. But so what he's talking about, this is how I ruffle feathers. I took a little video one morning a few years ago where I got the freedom to hunt just about any day of the week that I want because I'm self-employed. And I just said, well, for all you poor people that are going to work on Wednesday morning, um, I'm going to kill your deer today, sitting in my red leather seats.
I think
And
I remember that.
people that know me know it's a joke, but people that don't know me, man, it really rubbed them the wrong way. So now
That's
I think
hilarious.
that's been 3 or 4 years ago. So now the red leather seats always come up because I don't think you're gonna see another Cummins diesel rolling down the road with cat skin leather red seats.
Yeah. He and I were
That's
on the phone the
that's
other
where it came
day.
from.
Oh, look at that. Yeah, we were on the phone, man, and I told him you were coming on. He's like, "Oh man, ask him about those red leather seats." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Man, just ask him." I'm like, "All right, oh, okay." And so yeah, I had to bring
Yep.
it up. But see, so going to that whole thing, like ruffling feathers and stuff like that, like we kind of did that recently with an episode talking about all this broadhead drama that's been going on, and
Right.
I feel like because obviously you're not a hateful person, right? Like you're not out there like saying, "Oh, I'm the best hunter in the world" or and all this stuff, right? Like when you do the ruffle and feathers thing, I feel like we kind of need that because it humbles a lot of people and it really shows, who the people commenting on that stuff actually are.
Yeah.
Obviously, they've got to know you're just joking around, right?
Well, that's on them. That's not on me. That's the way I
A
look
hundred
at that.
percent,
That's
a hundred percent. But I mean,
they got a problem. They got a problem.
do you think that like Facebook and those groups that we're in and all that stuff harm what we're trying to do more than they help?
Man, I think that's the $1 million question there. Um, I don't know which way the scale leans further, whether it's a positive or negative thing. I think it's case by case. It's individual basis.
Mm-hmm.
Um, who is it bothering? Is it bothering other hunters? Is it bothering people that don't want us to hunt? Is it bothering people that don't care? You see what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah.
as far as shining a negative light, man, I mean, I'll be cliche, just like every big name in our industry. I say our industry like I'm in it. I'm not in it. I'm just a poor insurance man that knows how to kill big deer. Um, I mean, it's like sometimes you can be too honest for people, and that's probably a category I fall in because I'm just the kind of guy. Like if I've got a problem with you, I'm not gonna tell four other people hoping they tell you.
Yeah.
I'm coming straight to you. I'm gonna address it with you if it's worth addressing. If it's beneath me, then I'm just gonna laugh it off and let it go.
Yeah.
Um, if I'm being honest, things get under my skin, and I have to address them. I told you earlier on the phone I had to put out a lot of fires today. Had nothing to do with deer hunting. It had everything to do with business.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just a very direct person, man, and I cut up a lot. I ruffle feathers. Anybody knows me well, they'll say, well, he's too honest for most people. My business partner, he's a few me, super successful. Um, he is my mentor, and
Mm-hmm.
he helps mentor me in business and in life a little bit because he's a very smart guy. And the way he tells it, he's like, look, man, because he'll have people ask about me all the time because I'm in a very like white collar professional business.
Yeah.
And you see, I got a Burley Bow hoodie and a McWhorter rifle hat on right now. And this is how I work today. And I got on tennis shoes and a local boy pair of shorts.
Living the
I'm not
dream.
wearing a suit and tie. Right. So anyway, he'll tell these guys, these executives, other partners, managers, whoever, they'll ask like, man, he's kind of rough around the edges. They'll look, man, when you first meet him, you're gonna hate him because you're gonna think he's some arrogant jackass that's in your face and trying to hurt your feelings or trying to piss you off or whatever. He said, but once you get to know him, you're gonna understand that he's the guy that you can call at 2 o'clock in the morning and he's gonna come help you out and not ask any questions.
Yeah.
And I mean that's a pretty good analogy, illustration, whatever you want to call it. That's just kind of how I am, man. Anybody that knows me well, I cut up and I ruffle feathers and I'm rough around the edges and all that. But I like to think I got a pretty good heart, and I like taking care of people. And I'm not out to hurt any feelings or anything. But if feelings need to be hurt, I'm really good at it.
Well, I mean, that's what we really need in not even just the industry and the community, but the world, is people to be more direct with stuff. Because that's one thing that I have definitely learned over the past 2 years of doing just this podcast and life,
Right.
obviously, but especially the podcast, getting to know, I'm not gonna say a plethora of people, but a lot of different people with different personalities, different interests, whatever. Is there's so many people that just sugarcoat stuff and will tell you what you want to hear, and then 2 minutes later they'll go behind your back and tell someone else the exact opposite. You know what I mean? And I can't stand that. Like, we've had some business stuff like that happen just with the podcast, and I'm like, dude, you what is this? Why am I hearing this from this other person? You could have just came to me and talked about it, you know?
Right.
And I'm like, where's the honesty in all of that? So look, I told my buddy John today at the shop when I dropped my bow off that you were coming on. The first thing he said is exactly what you just said, is, man, Kip's a good dude, but he's very direct. And I was like, that's what I want. I was like, I want to hear the truth. I don't want to be told, oh yeah, man, go put out 200 pounds of corn. That big 6-year-old's going to come out, that big 9 point, you'll get him. That ain't the case. I mean, maybe, but there's way more to it than just that. And so, I like I've said a couple times, I respect the hell out of what you do and how you do it, because not a lot of people do that, man. They really don't.
Yeah.
So
I think there needs to be more of that in 2024. I've got 4 sons. I've got a 20-year-old, 18-year-old, 13-year-old, and a 7-year-old. And and this has a lot to do with life. Doesn't have a damn thing to do with bow hunting, right? My job as a father is to make them credits to society.
Yep.
I'm not here to be their friend. I'm not here to hold their hand. Look, I got a soft heart for my kids just like anybody is. Don't get me wrong. But I'm trying to raise 4 alpha males. And the word alpha gets people triggered now. The pink hairs and blue hairs of the world, they don't, it's racist, offensive, whatever it is. If you're a tatted up guy with shoulders, you're offending people already because you look like you're an alpha male. You act like an alpha male, like whatever you want to call it. But there needs to be a lot more of that in the world. To wrap it up in a nutshell, there's a lot of people that aren't being smacked in the mouth this day and age that could really use it.
Don't even get me started on that. I've gone down that rabbit hole so many times. Like I was reading the news today, just happened to pop up, and I saw all this stuff going on with Trump, and I'm just like, what is going on? And I'm not trying to make it political at all. I'm not here to do that. But take the politics out of it, and it's like, I can't even say half the things 10 years ago that I used to be able to say. And it's not like the meanings have changed. It's just people are so sensitive. And it goes back to what we were saying about like Facebook groups and stuff. If I post a photo of a deer and say, oh, this dude's not big enough yet, but I'm sharing this so y'all can see what it's like next year for him to, to see the growth and stuff. You're going to have 20 people on there like, oh man, it ain't about the horns and all this. And it's like, that's not the point of this. you retort back and they want to get all butt hurt and stuff. And
Yeah.
it just kills me, man.
Well,
Like, I feel like we
that's
need a big change. You know what I'm saying?
yeah. Yeah.
So,
Well, that's because they wouldn't say that if they were standing 3 feet in front of you, but
oh,
they're
100%. I've
hiding
called
behind a
people out.
keyboard. And
Yeah, I've literally
yeah,
called people out that have messaged me on social media and then say I run into them or they come to an event or something. I'm like, hey, remember that thing you said? What's up with
yeah,
that? And they're like, oh man, I was just joking. I'm like, you didn't sound like you were joking when you sent it
yeah,
to me.
yeah. Now you're
So
joking. I've run into that a few times.
yeah, man,
I've heard
I
some
don't
feeling.
know.
I've heard these 25 FOC guys feeling several times.
Oh, dude. So I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to transition. What what setup are you running? Like, what's your bow setup, arrow setup? You
All
said
right, so
FOC, like what's all of it?
um, I've got a 70-pound, 29-inch Matthews V3. I think this will be my third, maybe my fourth year hunting with it. I used to be the guy that headed to the bow shop as soon as the new ones dropped every year. And look, man, excuse me. If I'm being just completely honest with you, I'm not the guy that's shooting 3 days a week this time of year.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather be out on the lake. I'd rather be at baseball games. I got to work. Um, mm, I do a lot of offshore fishing. Bow hunting is in the back of my mind right now. I got a
Mm-hmm.
lot better things to do with my time than sit out and sweat my balls off in my front yard, grouping at 30 yards so I can make a 22-yard shot out of a lock on in September.
Yep.
So I'm pretty simple logic. I bring logic and common sense into it. Um, I don't try to upgrade everything every year. So yeah, I'm shooting a Matthews V3. It's like 70, 71 pounds, something like that. I shoot, there's a couple of them in the racks up there. I shoot uh, 300 spine Black Eagle Deep Impacts with the 80 grain 3-piece FOC insert. And I vary broadheads, man. I recently kind of made a full switch to the Quad Exodus because I got some fantastic performance out of them this past season.
Yeah.
But I will still chop a deer in half with a mega meat or a
There you
sever.
go.
I'm not your, oh, you got to shoot mechanical, you got to shoot this, you got to shoot that. I don't care, man.
Yeah.
If I see something I like, I'm gonna try it. And if you want to talk about arrow setup, I despise the 20% FOC crowd. If they want to do that, that's fine. Try that in a 20-mile-an-hour crosswind on a crispy morning in Kansas, and that arrow is going to parallel park into a shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, strictly my opinion, it is a recipe for disaster. I like a heavy, balanced arrow because I have killed people who killed a lot more. I'm not saying anything special, but there's a few people that we got this unwritten rule: you don't get an opinion until you're over 50 bow kills.
Yeah.
I think I killed number 77 last year with a bow. And, I'm not shooting everything. So, I mean, I could be killed 300 by now if I wanted to.
Yeah.
I think the most important thing about killing a deer is having a knock right behind the broadhead,
Yeah.
other than obviously having shot placement. So, I'm not going to sacrifice anything in my setup to where that knock is anywhere but right behind the broadhead, because that is going to be your number one key to penetration. It ain't gonna be how sharp your broadhead is. It ain't gonna be about how heavy your arrow is. It ain't gonna be your FOC percentage. None of that matters if the arrow's not flying straight. So I shoot. I think it's a 532 grain, around 14% FOC, 12 to 14%. That's always been my sweet spot.
Yeah.
I experimented with 625 grains with 250 up front, and it flies great at 20 yards, 40 yards with no wind. But if your face is up against that string a little bit, or if there's a 15-mile-an-hour crosswind, that thing starts dancing. And I'm not trying to hit a deer sideways with a broadhead.
Yeah.
So my my ideology and logic and common sense says the most important thing is making sure that knock is right behind the broadhead, and then we don't have anything to worry about as long as we put it in the right spot.
Yeah. I mean, so I did I guess you could call it like an arrow series back in, God, it was earlier this year. I want to say like February, March timeframe, maybe April is when it ended.
Right.
where I started it off with Troy Branch Ferry, right? Because
Okay.
I tinker all off season. I'll shoot close to 550 grains, and then I'll switch back down to 425. And I went on both ends and was trying to figure out what worked best for my setup. And so Troy comes on, he's telling me, and Troy's awesome, dude, right? Like,
Yeah.
I have nothing bad to say about him, right? But he's on there, he's like, oh yeah, the bone breaking threshold and this and this. And I've switched to single bevels. Like, I mean, this year I'm going to be running a mixture. So I'm going to have some BPA broadheads and some either mega meat or dead meat, just because I want to see, the difference.
Yeah.
Right. And Troy's on there and he's telling me, broadhead's got to be stupid sharp. You've got to have this much FOC. And he said the same thing though that you're saying. Arrow flight is key. That's the most important thing is arrow flight. Doesn't matter what the weight is, doesn't matter what broadhead. If your arrow's wobbling in the air or flying sideways or any of that, you're not going to kill it. And
Right.
so it started off with that, and it ended after having a couple guys like Tim Gillingham was on telling us, he's killing deer at 130 yards with a 350 grain arrow at 33-inch draw and 70 pounds. And I'm like, how is your bow not blowing up? Right? Like that blew my mind.
Mm-hmm.
But it ended with T-bone, and the one you and I were talking about earlier. And I said in that episode, and I'll say it again, there's a sweet spot. 450 to 500 is, I feel like, for the average size guy, the perfect sweet spot. And I've had so many people since then be like, oh no, man, 650 or nothing. And I'm like, hey, if it works for you and you have that setup where you've got feed, you've got 20 yards, and you only go when it's not super windy, like you were saying, hey, kill them. I don't aim for the shoulder. I'm aiming for behind the shoulder. Like,
I don't give a damn what they hunt with. I know what I'm hunting.
Oh
with.
yeah, exactly.
And
that's
I'll
really what
I'll drop
it down to.
I'll drop another name here. I'm not like a fanboy of anybody, online, YouTube, whatever.
Yeah.
Just not that I have anything against anybody. Like, I don't just sit there and watch YouTube video after YouTube video. I got better things to do than go down rabbit holes. But I will say this: I don't know him personally, but I will give Joel Maxfield a shout out because he has debunked just about everything that's been put into this FOC stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And, I can't say I've sat here and studied all his setups and all his thoughts and processes and ideas, but I've seen enough of it to understand that whether it's a 450 grain arrow, a 380 grain arrow, or a 720 grain arrow, if it ain't balanced and the nock's not behind the point, it doesn't matter.
Yep. So,
like I said, I'm shooting 532 grains at like 266, 67 feet a second. I'm not dropping bombs at 80 yards. Yeah. I can't shoot that well anymore. I used to shoot 6-inch groups at 100 when I was in college. Didn't finish college. But it was fun. Yeah. That ain't fun to me anymore. Now, as long as I'm killing deer at 40, 45, man, I haven't shot. I think out of 77 deer, I've killed 3 over 40 yards.
Wow.
The way I look at it, it's kind of like shooting turkeys, man. I'm not a big turkey hunter. I used to be more into it. So I'm not going to try to even go down that rabbit hole. There's so many people that I know personally that are just absolute turkey murderers. But the way I used to turkey hunt when I was big into it, I'm not trying to have the shotgun that it reaches out at 72 yards and drops a gobbler.
Mm-hmm.
The excitement to me is seeing how close I can get that bird.
Yep.
And that's how I look at deer hunting.
I mean, that right I'm there not trying to rifle hunting. That's the exact reason why.
Well, so what I'm getting at is look, if a deer, if I've got a 300-pound Kansas whitetail out there at 55 yards and I feel comfortable making that shot, I'm going to take that shot.
Yeah.
But if I know he's going to come to 26 yards, I'm not picking my bow up yet.
Mm-hmm.
I like being right on top of him, man. That's what gets me excited. I'm not reaching out trying to turn a deer into a pin cushion on shots that I don't feel comfortable taking.
Yeah.
I know people that have killed deer well over 100 yards with a bow and arrow, and more power to them. If they're that good, they're that good. I ain't that good. If I need to shoot a deer with an arrow at 100 yards, I've got a Raven crossbow right there in the case, and I ain't scared to use it.
There you go.
It just is what it is. I have no shame. That's just, and I just had a long range rifle built. I got turrets out to 800 yards on that thing, and still gonna shoot deer 50 yards with it.
Yeah.
You know, I had it built for a certain reason. Going out west this year on an elk hunt,
There
and
you go.
I'm tired of chasing elk, wasting time with a stick and string. I want to get one under my belt with a rifle. So
Heck
call it
yeah.
what you will. I'm uh I'm too greedy to go back with a bow and arrow on national forest.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, man. You know, this past season, one of the deer that I was after trike, he's a big 6 point. And I know I posted him on Facebook. You may have seen him, may not, but I had him the second weekend of season. Come
Okay.
walking down. It's my first, I think it was either my first time hunting this property. I don't remember, but it was very early in the season, right? And I patterned him every single day. He was coming in between 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock, and then he'd show back up between 7 and 8, I think it was. And dude, I got in so early, got rained on. Everyone listening probably knows the story, but long story short, he shows up, and I can see him up on the hill because I was hunting a power line with a little hill to the right of me. I'm looking over, and there's three little yearlings that come running down, and they instantly stop at like, yeah, I want to say it was probably about 20, 25 yards. So I'm like, okay, something's got to be with them. Like they're too little. Mama's probably with them or something like that. I look over and I see this big body brown, deer, and I can't tell who it is or what it is. So I'm like, oh, that's probably the doe. Keep watching it, and it comes running down the power line. And I was like, oh, here comes mama. Maybe trike will be behind her. No, it was trike. But those deer that had stopped, I guess the wind shifted and I didn't camo dust down enough or whatever it was. But he stops maybe 10 yards behind them. Now I've got this deer at 40 yards because the way that it was set up, and it was probably farther away than 10 yards. But either way, he stops and I can see him. Range him out. He's 40 yards. He walks back. Now he's at 45. Dude, I've shot awesome groups at 45. But
Mm-hmm.
it was one of those things like, okay, do I feel comfortable with this? Do I think I can pull this off? I didn't shoot. So I had to sit there and
Yeah.
watch this deer that I was dying to kill, hunted him the entire season until he dropped one side. Never got another shot. But it's like you're saying, you don't want to turn these things into a pincushion if you're not comfortable with it,
No,
you know?
no,
So
I've had to call a dog more than once. So
see, my goal is to never have that happen. I know it's gonna eventually, but
yeah, that's bullshit. It's gonna happen.
that's what I'm
If you do it
saying.
long enough, it's
I'm
definitely gonna
trying
happen.
though. But
Call me. I'll send them out there for you.
there you go. Well, look, man. God, I want to get you back on before season starts because I am very curious about what you do for early season, like your process of getting on these
Right.
big deer.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess
Well, I can add some. I can add something right now on that.
yeah,
Um, I start running cameras like in urban, suburban areas. Sometimes June, July, definitely in August. Start kind of taking a tally of what I've got. Um, Pick one or two that I really want to focus on, see what they turn into, and I know that particular deer is more killable in the first 2 weeks of bow season than he probably will be the whole season,
yep,
100%. But I don't get impatient and I don't get depressed if he disappears and I don't kill him in that time frame because I don't have any numbers to back this up. But what I've learned, especially since we started being able to legally bait, there's probably an 80% chance that deer is going to be in the same place in January
mm-hmm.
that he is in September. So I don't get my panties in a wad and get all worried. Like which one? This deer right here. I hunted that deer right there about as hard as I've ever hunted one. And people call it what they will. I wasn't. I wasn't being a good woodsman. I was running cameras. I was on 1,600 acres of private land, and I moved. I had about 5 or 6 cameras I was moving around till I finally figured him out. I narrowed it down, and I had to kill him with a crossbow because I was in South Georgia trying to kill probably 190, 195 inch deer on a peanut farm that I had, and I was
Gosh,
trying to figure him out. And I had a rifle and I had my crossbow in the bed of my truck, and this deer shows up. This typical, oh, they're locked down, you can't kill them. Well, let me tell you something. In Georgia, if there's hungry does, you can kill the big buck behind them that's locked down with them for a couple of days.
oh yeah,
And he showed up at 10:45 in the morning while I was in a stand in South Georgia, and I rented an Airbnb that night. And I got up at 2 o'clock in the morning in that Airbnb, fired up that red leather seat Cummins with a Polaris Ranger behind it, and I drove 2.5 hours and parked on the side of the road where I was hunting, and I started making my way in there, planning on trying to kill him after 10 o'clock. And I got about 100 yards from where I cut in with a red headlamp on, trying to be real sneaky still, climber on my back, didn't have anything set up. And the camera goes off at like 6:17 p.m. I mean a.m., excuse me, 6:17 a.m. He's there. So I'm sitting there thinking, man, I just dedicated like the last 24 hours to preparing for this deer. And now he's come and gone already. So I waited about, I don't know, close to a half hour. And dude, I was less than 100 yards off a fairly busy paved road. And I was literally walking every time a car drove by. I was reaching down and scooping leaves out of my way for every footstep I made. I was moving branches and pine straw. It took me probably 15 minutes to make a 75-yard approach. Had to put a climber on the tree, climbed up, got settled in, and I'm thinking, man, this deer was here 30 minutes ago, 45 minutes ago. There's no way he's coming back. Well, I put a Raven arrow. People gonna call it a bolt. It's an arrow if it's got fletching. I put a Raven in him at 10:25 that morning, and I let two other deer that most people would be thrilled to kill go because I was focused on him. And 5 weeks later, after a Bavarian mountain hound ran him 3 miles the first day, he was found, and I still got to claim him. Technically, I killed him, and it's kind of a wonky story, but there was closure there, and I hunted my ass off of that deer from the opening day to the day I killed him. I mean, he was keeping me up at night. He really, like literally, he was keeping me up at night. And I mean, he's a big deer. He's a little over 145.
Yeah.
Straight up 9-pointer. He's a good deer, and I'm probably about as proud of that deer as I am any of them because I had a plan that came together, man. Like this one right here, killed that deer at 1 p.m. in Kansas. He's about an hour behind a doe that had already come through, and I literally had to throw my phone in my pocket, draw back, and shoot and yell at him at the same time. He's dead in 30 seconds. I wasn't prepared for that one.
Yeah.
But this one right here, and I've got a few around here, man. We could talk about that another time, but I've got several around here that I got a lot of time invested in, and I really do thoroughly enjoy the chess game that is chasing them. I love it.
Yeah, that's one thing with whitetails, man, because I've always got goals. Like I want to go out west for muleys, I want to go on a caribou hunt and all that. But there's something about whitetails that I feel like from the Western perspective, we get the bad rap of, oh, those are just, fat rednecks with little Debbie's in a tree stand. They're just sitting there.
That's right.
Dude, it ain't like
lazy deer hunter. Yeah.
Exactly. It ain't like that. I mean, the amount of time I've spent just on public, because all my spots are, I've got one spot that is 1 acre, and then I've got another one that is technically only 7, even though I do have permission to hunt the neighboring property. So it's probably like 20. But even then, that's small compared to, the 6,000-acre public that I hunt. And the amount of time I've spent on public alone, I mean, we ain't lazy. I'll tell you that. We ain't lazy. We might have it a little easier, but we definitely ain't lazy.
But you don't have to be the epitome of fitness to kill a deer, but it
Exactly.
definitely helps out being able to keep your feet under you and keep going. Because I don't know if you've ever been to the Midwest deer hunt, man, but I've pulled 10 days straight out there, and the wives at home, stereotypically, they think you're out there on vacation, you're living it up, you're going to the Bobcat Lounge and drink a beer at night, staying up late, assing around. But in reality, I go to bed earlier than I ever do any other day of the year for those 9 or 10 days. It is absolutely exhausting.
Yep.
Like that's why I tip my hat to people like these Sneak One boys. They're gonna go out there and hunt 40 days straight to kill a 200-inch deer. That's tough, man.
Yeah.
Lee Lukoski, people talk crap about somebody like Lee Lukoski because he grows giant deer.
Yeah.
He's waiting until the deer's 8 or 9 years old before he kills him. He's 214 inches when he finally kills him, and he gets a bad rap because he's hunting a private farm in Iowa. Well, let me tell you something. The average dude ain't hunting 50 days straight to kill a deer.
Yeah.
Never sleeping in, never missing an evening, moving around left and right, running 40 different cameras. Like, man, you got to tip your hat to that kind of stuff. Now, that being said, I have packed in, 5, 6, 7 miles out west, and that ain't easy either. That's
Oh yeah.
rough. That first two miles uphill just to get the day started chasing an elk is pretty rough.
Yeah.
It's especially if you walk up on a grizzly. It gets kind of rough.
Dude, man, me and Thor were talking about grizzly hunting. I was like, dude, I'd do it. But that's one thing when I go out west that I probably won't sleep, honestly, because in my head, I'm gonna be all, oh man, what if I go to the next thing I know, I wake up in a bear's mouth or something, And it doesn't happen all the time, but it happens.
I had a light encounter with a grizzly this past season, and there was wolves everywhere. The wolves don't want any part of you, and you just don't want to be real close to that grizzly and not know he's there. That's what I can say about that. And don't think you're gonna pull that 10 millimeter out first. You grab the bear spray and learn how to spray running backwards.
Well, look, man, we need to set up another time for you to come on and actually tell these stories, because that was a big thing I did want to touch on, but obviously time constraints and stuff like I was telling you earlier, I got to go pack my daughter's week-long camp tote.
Yeah.
After doing this, and then get up at 4 a.m. tomorrow to drive to Augusta, and then cut grass after that, and go to Alabama. There's so much stuff to do. But all that said, Kip, I really appreciate you coming on, dude. Honestly,
yeah, man.
We got to set up a time to actually hear these stories, go over tactics, and just ruffle more feathers. It's kind of
we can definitely do that. That ain't hard. That comes pretty natural.
Awesome, man. Well, look, dude. If you don't mind, send me over some kill photos and stuff, and maybe some, because I do have a TikTok. You know how TikTok is, man. I posted a picture. I'll say this real quick. I posted a picture from last week's episode crossover with Georgia Archery, and John sent me a photo of him and 2 or 3 other guys with arrows in a 3D target that I had. I mean, it's not an animal. It's not dead. It's not even alive. Put it on TikTok, and they took the video down. That's video number 2 in a month that they've taken down. So unfortunately, it sucks. But yeah, man, just send me over whatever you got, and then I'll always do a promo reel every week, and then I'll add one of those photos in for the YouTube video. But yeah, dude, seriously, thank you for coming on. Like I said, I look up to guys like you. Guys like you, Jay, all the dudes that know.
I am nothing special, man. It's been a trial by fire, and I just kind of learned over the years how to get in front of them. I know far more deadly people than I am, but I appreciate it. I don't take it lightly, so I do appreciate that. It's a fun game we get to play.
Yeah, man. Got to give credit where it's due, right?
That's exactly right.
Awesome, boss. Well,
that's exactly right.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you again, for real.
All right, dude. I appreciate you. You have a good one.
You too, man.